Welcome, everyone, or the three of us, because I think that's all we have on here right now. I've got Marshall. We'll let some people get on here right now. I don't know if this thing actually lets us know who's on here or not, but I am live with Drew Gill and Marshall Robinson, the latest winners of the team championship with MLF Major League Fishing. Congratulations on that win, fellas.
Thank you, Jason.
Appreciate it.
So we're gonna dive in. So this new format is all bass, no bowl. We're not here about drama. We're not here about negativity. We're here to have fun and talk about all the good things about bass fishing. And could not think of any two better guys to start off with than these two that we've got right here. Two young and up and comers, and just positive lights. Marshall's been in a family that's known for fishing. Drew, your dad, Todd, maybe not so much. I mean, I'm not going to hammer on Todd. He's not here to defend himself, but I'm sure that he would be on here bragging about you.
He's got his fishing exploits. I'm going to be honest. Our fishing record against one another, although it might be slim, he's beaten me more than I've beaten him fishing head to head. So I wouldn't go as far as to say he wouldn't be better than I am if he decided to do this and not coach a college fishing team. So.
Nice. I'm going to have to send him a text message. Kudos to that one. You must know it's Christmas time. You got to suck up for that present.
I mean, it's always in the back of your mind, you know. You gotta keep. You're playing chess. You're not playing checkers.
I think with your winnings this year, though, I think you could afford to get Dad probably something nice from the year. Anyway, welcome to the live podcast that we've got going here. We're going to talk a little bit about their latest win. And first thing, I think after reading all the comments and all that kind of stuff and actually talking to so many of you guys that are in this team championship, kind of just explain this format and how much fun you had, because every single person I've talked to is loving this team championship format.
Yeah. So basically with the team series, we have 4 events that are all postseason. So these events are not cumulative, meaning these events don't lead to a single tournament. These are all 4 standalone events that MLF has put on in the offseason. 2-man teams, standard buddy tournament style. No practice, no info. And, 3 rounds, just like our regular season events. We got elimination round, knockout round, championship round. In every one of these events, we started with 12 teams and worked your way down to the winner. So basically there's 3 days where we fish with 4 teams per day for the first 3 days of this tournament. So 4 different teams on the first day, 4 separate teams on the second day, 4 separate teams on the third day. And that convenes down to a group of 3 and 3 for days 4 and 5. And then it cuts down to a final 4 teams on the last day to fish for the title. These 4 events are, like I said, they're exclusive of one another. So we got the opportunity as anglers to fish in a maximum of 2 events. So the first 2 events are set, meaning we drafted all our teams. We got to pick our partners and things like that. And then it got seeded out. So basically, once they seeded out, you either got assigned to Tournament A, which was Erie, Pennsylvania, Tournament B, which was Neenah, Wisconsin. And then same thing happened with the back set, which was you got assigned to Early, Texas, or you got assigned to Vero Beach, Florida. So it's 2 sets, 2. Nobody fished more than 2 team series each. So, you really had to make it count when you got your opportunity to fish one, because you were only going to fish a maximum of 2 if you were lucky. And so we got these opportunities to fish these events, and they're, fully televised, meaning every boat has a camera the whole time. Guaranteed payout, $4,500, and no entry fee for these, which is an awesome bonus. And $40,000, which is the grand prize for the champion of every event. Split between 2 partners. So me and Marshall made $20,000 a piece at Vero Beach. But awesome format for some fun postseason events. It's awesome bonus check because you don't have an entry fee. You're guaranteed paid. And it's an awesome opportunity to have a camera in the boat all day and know you're going to have that opportunity to engage with the fans in that close of a manner whenever you have a camera all day and there's only a maximum of 4 teams on the water at a time. It's a really cool opportunity to go fish with the no info, no practice rules, to show up and just fish fresh with a partner, with the opportunity to engage with the fans all day. And it is an electric atmosphere.
That's awesome. So like, how much did you guys literally feed off each other? You each have your own strengths. Everybody's got their own favorite techniques. They've got, whether it's forward facing or flipping a jig or whatever, but how much interaction did you guys actually have with each other in one of you being running the trolling motor, the other one being in the back of the boat or whatever, but just play off each other's strengths and feed off each other to catch those fish? Because you guys, I would tune in a little bit. You guys might be struggling. You might be bottom of the barrel. Then I would go back an hour later and you guys are ahead by 18 pounds.
Yeah,
multiple times.
yeah, for sure. So, as you know, you talk about feeding off each other. That's a big deal in a team tournament, because you really both need to perform at your best. And to do that, it can't. Sometimes it can be, but most of the time it's not going to be one guy pulling all the weight. So me and Drew, we fish similar in the fact that our minds are kind of alike, like the way we approach a lake and the way we break it down. That part's similar, but our technique is a little different. I'd say Drew's more of a finesse fisherman, and I'm a little more of a power fisherman. And I think that was a big deal, or that played a big role in us winning this tournament because, for one, we're going to Florida, and there's going to be some power fishing, and there's going to be somebody's going to need to be covered in water and searching, and that's kind of the role I played a lot. And once we found those fish, Drew was really good at picking the area apart and catching every single one of them. On that drop shot, specifically. But being able to catch them on two different baits, one after the other, or if it was just us both double drop shotting like we did the last 2 days, being able to alternate when you got guys on your tail coming up and cutting into that lead. If you got your partner there catching one, say you catch a fish, you put him on the scale, and while you're weighing him, well, your partner hooks up with another one, and it's just one after the other. And, if you go through a lull, your partner can be catching them, and if, vice versa. And I think that's key when it comes to these team series, because these guys can catch them. And, if you're not on your best game, they will run you down. So
you gotta know, though, that being the young guys that are up and comers, it had to feel pretty darn good to get that win, though, over some of these guys. You're not trying to rub it in anybody's face, but but your confidence level. I mean, you both had great rookie seasons and second years and stuff like that. But I mean, it's that confidence builder to go, especially no practice. I mean, no practice, not knowing your body of water. I mean, Drew, you and I've had talks about that. Marshall, same thing. Is like you like to practice. You like to break down a lake and figure out exactly where you're going. So knowing this and going in there, completely blind and catching fish had to raise that confidence level going into 2025.
No practice, no info is such a tremendous challenge, especially when you're fishing against individuals that have some level of prior knowledge of the fishery. So to go down and fish in Florida against Terry Scroggins and Britt, who had an unbelievable week, and everybody knows how familiar Terry is with that part of the country. The Lane brothers need to say no more in terms of Florida dominance. And Skeet and John, who, historically been very good in Florida. Skeet's won in Florida. And they had the best day of anybody all week on the stick marsh. So they were coming into that championship round really hot. And to come in there and really not, just compete to try and win or put ourselves in a position to win, but to go out there and do it in dominant fashion was something that's a huge confidence builder. Because it wasn't just that, if things hadn't gone our way or we just got fortunate and it just so happened to roll in our favor, we went out, we made really good decisions, we executed, and we plumb blasted them. And to be able to know that you can go out there and do that when the situation arises or when it calls for it, and that you're going to recognize that situation and maximize it, is something that gives you a lot of trust in your own abilities. And I know it did that for me last week.
That's awesome. I mean, I know the drop shot, but what were some of the other, techniques that you were using besides the drop shot?
Some of the things we were doing, so especially the first day, right when we get there, we go to Headwaters Lake, and the weather's, typical Florida. It was warm, sunny. It wasn't real windy either, so it was really hot. The water was heating up. Fish were active, and they were wanting to chase. And, we had a slow first 2 periods that day. But the last period, we ended up catching them really good, and that's what got us into that knockout round. But some of the other baits we caught them on was first thing that morning, we caught a couple on a prop bait and a walking bait. Had a couple good bites on that. And then The rest of the day, it was pretty much all chatterbait if it wasn't drop shot. So, we didn't catch them on a bunch of different stuff, but we were able to get some key bites on that chatterbait when we wasn't double drop shotting. So,
and I think, really in terms of bait selection this week, you're talking about, you got one switch in bass fishing in terms of bait selection and technique approach. And that is, one direction of the switch is efficiency. One direction of the switch is effectiveness. And when you're dealing with an environment like Florida that has so much cover, it's so overwhelming. You generally want to start with that switch in efficiency mode because you can't guarantee you're going to get around them if you don't cover enough water to put yourself in a situation where you can get around a couple bites in a pretty short span of time. And then once you get around that population, that's when you flip that switch to effectiveness and you establish that you're around them and you flip that switch and make that adjustment to make sure you catch everything you're around. And really, that's a two-pronged approach you have to have on not just Florida, but any fishery, but it's extremely important in Florida when you have a lot of just, inundated cover around you that's just endless. It's really important to know when to be in which mode. And Marshall had us keyed in on that all week really well.
And these were not tidal waters, right? Yeah.
Nope.
We joked around and talked about that tide coming in and out, but there was no tide.
Yeah. And they're rectangle lakes too, so they're not even remotely natural.
Yeah. Nice. Well, and I know in other interviews that you guys did and everything else, one of the things you were talking about is like when you said cleaning house, after listening to you and being in the boat with you, I mean, you literally cleaned house. If you saw a fish, you were wrecking those fish. If there was a group of 5, you were pretty much catching all 5 and moving on is my take, probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, in Florida, when you got off-colored water, it makes it really opportune for you to be able to fish a piece of cover, catch one, and not necessarily pull a whole group around or pull fish to the attention of the sound or chaos of the fish that you're fighting. Because in that dingier water, they're generally going to hang closer to cover. They're going to hang closer to their residence, wherever that may be, and they're not going to stray from it a lot, which makes you very efficient at picking off every single fish that you're able to. You don't disturb a whole lot. You're very stealthy because you don't have that visibility of that ginormous shadow that you have in really clear water. And you're able to be very effective at catching everything that's around you.
And even going back to what you just said, even even the second day of competition at Stick Marsh, first thing that morning, we find a piece of cover. It's like a little log, and it's laying at an angle, and it's connected to the bottom. And we were looking at 2 fish, and Drew actually made a cast with his jerkbait and somehow got it hung. And even after getting it hung, we were able to pitch back in there and catch that fish and without spooking it. So that's kind of what he's saying about not having to pull the fish away from the cover. I noticed that on that one.
Yeah, which doesn't happen very often at all. They're usually 8 miles gone, swimming away, and never to bite again. But it was you two. It was just meant to be, right? It was meant to be for you guys to win.
It was
that's what
if you look at it on paper, if there was one scenario that set us up to win, that was it. Having relatively stable Florida conditions leading, at least through the first day of the knockout round, to get a lot of individuals into that championship round that are, your hardcore bread and butter Florida power fishermen, guys that are very well suited to beat your brains out whenever the weather's good. And it got a lot of those individuals into that championship round. And then when they got there, we got that cold front that just established a situation where taking a more specific, scalpel-esque approach was going to be really advantageous. And it got a field of anglers that are just totally suited to be a lot to handle in a normal scenario and put them a little bit off balance because they had crushed them so well leading up to that final day.
So with the team championship, so they had the one that was 2 years ago when they had the headsets on and they were able to talk to each other, but they were in different boats. Then you've got this format. I mean, do you know like which way MLF is leading towards the team championship? Was one better than the other? Because I know like when they were doing the headsets and they had 3 partners or whatever and 3 boats against 3 boats, they came here. I'm in Missouri. They came to Stockton Lake. It was pretty cool seeing them fish, a lake that I've been on for years. But I know talking to those guys like B Height and Brent Ayler and those guys, they were like, They loved being able to have that headset and just talking back for, and feeding off each other. Hey, I'm over here. I'm catching them on pea gravel. I'm catching them on a, black and blue, blah, 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 whatever, that kind of stuff. But then this championship is completely different. This team. So is there any talk, is there any talk about like which way they're leaning towards? Are they just going to keep mixing it up for you guys, or do you know?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the headset thing, I do agree. It was really cool. And that was something different, and fun to watch. But I think the greatest thing about what they have going on now with the two guys in the same boat is that that's what all your people watching are relating to, because that's what they do. I mean, that's what I've always done when I fish. If I'm not fishing a tour event, I'm fishing a team tournament with one of my buddies, my brother, somebody like that, and you're always going to be in the same boat. So that's relatable, and I think they've been getting a lot of positive feedback, and people really enjoy seeing them. And to add to it, you have two personalities in one boat. So,
well, as a guy that fishes local tournaments too, there's two personalities, but we can't put what we're doing on the boat on TV.
Yeah.
I think the delivery of these is another reason why they're going to stick with them. I think they would have seen similar success with the team series the way it was, with guys in different boats with headsets and things of that nature. I think they would have seen very similar success if they had it live. I mean, that live product is so powerful. The ability for people to stream fishing actively going on and keep up with it like any other live sporting event is super important. It's something that, fans have definitely taken to over the last few years. And so being able to deliver the team series this year live and active is something that people have really grabbed onto, especially because I think one good thing that Major League Fishing has done with this is they've taken advantage of that fall opportunity where there's pretty much no, major tournament fishing going on. And this is people's opportunity to latch on to something cool, something different. And it doesn't necessarily just continue on to the, we get in as viewers, I watched this sport for years before I ever got to compete in it. And you get that end of summer like lull where you've watched 8 or 9 tournaments, you start to get live tournament fatigue a little bit, and you give them something really fresh, to watch in the fall that's unlike anything they saw all year, and it's the only really quality live product available in the fall for the most part, that people can watch and see some of their favorite anglers compete in, and I think it's something they've done really well.
I agree. I mean, as a guy that watches all the live, and we have people in the office, we have computers going, we're tuning into MLF and Bass and everything else that we can. And we all have our own opinions about, hey, what we like, what we don't like, blah, blah. But it's at the end of the day, it's live bass fishing. It's awesome.
Yep.
I mean, it's
100%, man.
It's crazy. And to all you viewers out there that are paying attention, please tune into every live one and support these guys, because that's honestly what we need to do as bass fishermen. No bickering, no nothing. Just tune in and watch it. You might have your opinion and stuff like that, but these guys are out there. You two have a dream. I mean, you're both in your 20s. We won't talk about age. We already had that conversation, but you're both really young. You've got a huge future in this sport. You're both changing the game. Drew popping out of that nowhere and making a name, and Marshall. Your whole entire family is just ate up with fishing and brothers and dad and everything else. And it's just, it's cool to watch both of you succeed, especially over the last few years, getting to know you guys even more. And honestly, I mean, I've fished with Drew. You come to my home lake and watched you put on a clinic in 2 hours, and we'd never even left side of the boat ramp. I went the next week into a tournament and caught 7 pounds. I didn't tell you that, but I only caught 7 pounds. So whatever you did, it didn't work.
Did you run out of depth charges, JT?
Yes, I did. I was completely
depth strikes.
Yes, get it right. Come on. Fail, check mark. But no, one of the things about the team championship too is tuning in as a viewer, like we've already kind of talked about, is you two feeding off each other and stuff like that. But what's it like to be competing against each other, but then in the same boat competing with each other? I mean, how does that kind of correlate? You're not trying to show trade secrets or that kind of stuff, but you two kind of being so similar in age and stuff like that. I mean, what was that like, for your first time of being together in a boat?
I think I really enjoyed it because, we told somebody the other day, somebody asked us if we had ever fished together, and we were like, no, we've actually never fished together. We planned on it, and we always said we would, but we never got around to it. So that gave us a easy opportunity to line that up. Because we've been buddies for a long time now, and we're always talking, and we're hanging out, going to eat, talking and during practice, all that. But yeah, to get in the boat together and kind of, I thought it was cool to watch Drew and see how he approaches it, and realize that we're similar in a lot of ways, but then also there's a lot of things he does a little different. And I try to pay attention to that, because every angler is going to have something specific that they do that makes them great. And to be able to try to learn something from a buddy, it was cool. And man, I wasn't really surprised, because I kind of expected it, but I was really happy with how good we worked together in the boat, and the chemistry we had, because like the decisions we were making, the ideas we were having, we had no conflict. Like one of us it was almost telepathic. Like one of you say something or kind of hint at something, and the other one's already thinking of that. And, that made it really easy for us to go to different places and try different patterns, because there wasn't any second guessing it. You could do it with full confidence. And that's, if, confidence is big, obviously, in bass fishing. So, we were never second guessing ourselves and, thinking, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we should be doing what everybody else is doing. I mean, we knew what we were doing was different. And, but we thought that was what could set us apart. And in the end, it did.
So when you were on the water competing against all these other guys, especially in the championship, like how close were some of these guys actually to you fishing? I mean, were you in eyesight several times and, just waylaying them in front of people? I mean, was it you were trying to get off by yourselves and do your own thing?
Generally speaking, in these team events, although it's a small field, it's a small playing field as well. So it's generally feels pretty close and personal. Due to this smaller playing fields, a lot of times it feels like a cage match, man. You get out there and you're fighting over 3 or 4 places in the lake that set up right, areas that are really, productive looking on the map or on your units, or as you do the ride around. I mean, most of these playing fields are small enough, you're going to see the whole thing in the ride around, which means the same stuff as, you're high level bass fishermen. They are high level for a reason, meaning they think in a similar manner because they fish in a similar manner, because there is right and wrong in bass fishing. There are right answers. Bass do certain things certain times a year in certain fisheries. And so a lot of anglers are going to gravitate toward the same type of areas in terms of the way they set up or the way they fish. And so even though you got a smaller field, I mean, we fished around, Skeet and John fished around us, and Britt and Terry fished around us the final day. I mean, we had people within eye shot. I bet we had a competitor within eye shot probably 60% of the day. It was something where it is a little bit close and personal. Now, never in the tournament did we have any run-ins with anybody in terms of like sharing water or anything of that nature, but you're seeing them a lot. And a lot of times you're also seeing them as you're getting score tracker updates. And a lot of times that can mess with your head, especially if it's an area you've been and they're catching them behind you. Now you're second guessing every decision you've made, because you're going, oh, well, I thought they weren't there, but actually they might be there and they're catching them. What are they doing that I'm not doing? Or vice versa. They might be fishing a section you've not already fished. You look over there and you're like, man, they're starting to catch them over there really good. Maybe there's something different about their section of this zone that's better than what I'm doing. And so it's really easy to get in your own head when you're dealing with smaller playing fields.
You think those other guys are thinking, I wonder if Drew's throwing a Neko rig?
I'm sure that thought crossed their mind a couple times. I imagine, despite how minnowy it set up, I would imagine the minnow flashed through their minds a couple times too, as well, just with both of us being in the same boat.
And we didn't have one. We didn't have one with us.
We actually both left him at the house. Which, after, so.
Hang on, I got to make a sponsorship note of that. Hang on. Forgot baits.
Anyways, after the second day of the knockout round, we ended up finding out later on that Chris and Bobby had caught him on a minnow the second day of the knockout round. And after knowing that, like, it was something where I went back and I was like, man, if they had ended up winning the tournament doing something like that, you know how frustrated I would have been with myself that I just put myself in the mental Florida box and left them at home and wasn't prepared. But it didn't end up working out that way. But if it had, I would have been kind of frustrated with myself, because I had the same mistake happen at Santee this year. And at that tournament, I said never again.
And then you did it again. So any like friendly banter, any smack talking between other teams? I mean, there's got to be some stuff. What was your favorite moment, Marshall? What was your favorite moment of the whole winning this and everything else? What was your favorite moment?
I bet. yeah, the sound of that, and man, one of my favorite moments was just the fact that we got to beat Chris and Bobby, and Big Show and Britt, and Skeet Reese and John Murray. For one, you just beat the Florida boys, and two, that's a stacked little group to go up against. So just the fact that we beat them and we could say, hey, we beat them and beat them, pretty good, and that was probably one of my favorite parts.
I would have to live up to that one. How about you, Drew?
And one more thing. I got one more, and I don't know how I forgot this. The 3-9 buzzer beater on day one to put my dad out was probably another one. I'll put that one in there.
That was a crucial moment.
Wow. Just had to drive that nail home. Just right in the old man's back right there.
Oh, I had to, man.
It's hard to say that any other moment across the week was any more important than that one, because we almost didn't even get to fish the knockout round. That buzzer beater fish got us in. And, I'm going to say this one because this is just again, it's something that I really cherish from such a great tournament and an opportunity that doesn't arise often. So I'm going to say it because it's so awesome. It wasn't a moment because we got to clobber them the last day. Winning in a dominating fashion is something that everyone dreams of because it's the most stress-free tournament day ever. You get to go out there, you get to go fishing in an event, knowing you probably haven't won, and get to enjoy the whole day of just fishing on the fishery you're on. And that, even though it wasn't a moment, it was something across the whole day, getting to win in such dominating fashion is that's a bucket list thing for any high-level tournament angler or any tournament angler in general, is blowing out a tournament. I've never really done it, and getting to finally do it was something that was really special to me. But single moment had to be getting those trophies, man. I mean, look at this thing. This is like the sickest trophy ever. This is unbelievable. It's huge. It sounds super cool.
Yeah, it just had that knockout ring ding to it right there. Ding!
Yeah, 100%. I've been doing that so much. I've done that so much that over here, I was accidentally doing it with my keys in the truck, and I didn't realize there was a finish on it that might chip off. And so on this side, I got like a dozen chips on it from clanging it with my keys.
Just swap it out with Marshall's next time you see him. He'll never know.
Yeah, I had to jump in for just 1 second, and I'm gonna leave y'all with this. I just heard that Marty's already talking to Mitchell about the rebuttal to Marshall that's going to come here in a couple of years. So we got it on tape.
Oh God!
All right, hey, y'all doing a great job. We do have a few questions coming in, so let's just make sure we leave some time
no doubt
for that. All right.
And a side note to that as well, the moment that Mitchell decides to fish one of these team series, the trash talk will be absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah.
It will be indescribable.
Yeah.
Mitchell can back you into a corner with his intimidation factor, and that's something you'd really have to account for.
His intimidation factor.
It's like Randy Howell or Laker Howell over Randy. It's just like you got Laker walking in all yoked up, then you got Randy. Intimidation factor. No, that's awesome. Like I said, I mean, you could tell, and I'm glad you said that, Drew, because like winning in such a dominant fashion, your guys' whole demeanor on the last day on the water was just different. And that's the stuff where I'm telling people, all these fans out there, to tune in, because you were having fun. You were fishing. I mean, you were both still competitive. You're wanting to win. There's always that pressure. Hey, somebody could catch him and roll in, but you had fun. And you know how it is. If you can relieve that pressure in any business and anything in structure, fishing, anything, it's just a pressure off you, and you perform better. You enjoy it more, and I think 100%. That's something I think a lot of the bass guys and pros all around, when they call me about stressing out about not doing good or something like that, I'm just like, man, just remember you're getting fish. You know, you have a job where you're fishing for a living, and just remember to try to go out there and enjoy it. I think a lot of people get so caught up and have to win, have to perform, like they lose sight of that. And it was nice to see you guys just cut loose in that thing and have fun and know that you're up against, like you said, you were up against dominant guys in Florida, you know, and so you had that pressure to be like, hey man, we got this, we're doing this, you know, and you did it. And you got that giant trophy with chips all over it in the back.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Oh no. So when I said, you know, is there anything that just stood out or your favorite moment? You know, I'm also thinking of, like, you know, big fish catches, things like that. But you two cutting back and forth, and it seemed like your cameraman were having a good time. Obviously, I've been the cameraman too, so it's like if the guy's not catching fish, it sucks as the cameraman. I mean, it's like you're back there because they're in a bad mood. You know, you're like, well, like, you know, how do you lift somebody up there? So having two guys that are just having fun and being energetic about it makes a cameraman's job a lot easier too. And did you feel any pressure about, like, being live every day, or did you feed off of being live every day?
I think personally it makes you better. I don't know what you think, Drew.
I mean, for myself, dude, I love it. It keeps it in terms of, you know, the focus level. I think you're more focused when you're on live, generally speaking, because you know that you've got something to deliver. Mm-hmm. It's not just deliver, you know, a moment in time or this background that you're on. This is your opportunity to deliver an entertaining, you know, opportunity for fans, and this is your opportunity to deliver, you know, on your fishing ability. And so this is like your shining moment. This is your spotlight opportunity where when you have this chance, you can't let it slip, and it keeps you laser focused all day long because you're just locked in on your job. You know, this is what you live for, man. This is like getting called out to throw the 9th inning in the World Series. This is what you've been sitting in that bullpen just amping yourself up about the whole time, and you finally get the opportunity to step out there. You step out there and rock it.
I like it. I'm still down in the minor leagues. I'll never get called up, and I don't want to. Now, one of the things that you know, somebody was asking me the other day, and I told them that I would ask some of the anglers, you know, about it, is like in the off season, you know, how much fishing do you actually, like, how many days a week or in a month or whatever do you guys really get on the water and fish and practice in the off season? Is it a year round, you know, deal for you guys? Do you take a little break? I mean, what is it between your two regimens that, you know, in this off season that you guys do?
Well, in the off season, one of my favorite things is that it gets cold. And when it gets cold, the fish start biting around here. So I do a good bit. I would say starting around Thanksgiving, I probably fish at least minimum one day a week, but sometimes it's like 2 or 3 days a week. So there's never a week that goes, you know, and Drew might fish a little more than me. I don't know, but there's never a week that goes by that I'm not at least getting one good full day on the water. And it definitely keeps your skills sharp. You don't want to go, you know, for a long period of time and not do any fishing, because then you get out of the rhythm, out of the groove. So I think it's good to fish a good bit in the off season. And also, I don't hunt, so that also, you know, hunting don't take away from my time fishing. So that's another thing.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, I bet you don't.
For me, I'm a pretty hardcore, like 2 days a week guy all winter. You know, it's not really like here comes fishing day, it's time for me to check this box. It's just I love doing it in the winter. It's one of the best times of year to get on the water. Very few boats, very big bass, and generally very dumb bass. They're just hard to get around. If you can get around them, you can catch them. So I'm a 2 days a week guy in the winter. Generally speaking, I'm that all the way through, other than we'll get ice here periodically throughout the winter. It generally doesn't stay around for a long period of time, but you know, we'll get it periodically. That's when I'll end up driving down to Kentucky, but it's KY is about 2 hours from my house, so I'll be about once a week once that happens. But I'm twice a week when our lakes around home are open.
Oh yeah, the ice jig bite is gonna start catching on right here. That's a Table Rock secret. I'm gonna scroll over here and get some of these questions here.
For sure.
Stephen Deverly, how does Drew feel forward-facing sonar was for him on championship day? No one else was doing it. Oh, look, he's got it up there. What was Drew looking for in that habitat? Shallow, dirty water, still.
Yep. So, man, I'm just using that piece of technology to give me eyes underwater to kind of establish what's going on in my scenario and decide, how these fish are setting up in the water column. Are they moving a lot? Are they sitting close to a piece of cover? Or are they high in the water column? Are they near the bottom? Just kind of assessing what, in this scenario, I'm trying to assess what kind of casts I need to make around pieces of cover and whether my focal point needs to be cover or like bottom composition, bait, something like that. And in this scenario, I assessed through, the first opportunity I saw, Marshall got on scope because I was back re-rigging my worm. And he was like, hey, there's one behind that clump. I trusted him pitch out there, even though I didn't see it. And sure enough, there he was. Slid out from behind that clump, caught him, and caught me a nice solid scoreable. And as soon as I saw that, I started rolling with it and understanding, okay, there's some level of bottom adjacence. That fish was really close to the bottom. He was near a piece of cover. Generally speaking, in dirtier water, that's what you're going to tend to focus on is residences of fish, not just the fish themselves, but residences, meaning, a little bit of shell on the bottom, a little clump of grass, a hard edge of the hydrilla or a point of the hydrilla, a different piece of cover, meaning, let's say you go from hydrilla to pads back to hydrilla. That little clump of pads probably going to be pretty high percentage. And I'm using my eyes underwater to establish how is that fish setting up around that piece of cover and what's the most opportune cast for me to make to present that bait to that fish very quietly and effectively, get that bite and get that fish out away from that cover and into the boat. Those are the thoughts that I have in dirty water around cover especially is, I'm using that technology first to allow my eyes to be more efficient by understanding exactly what they're looking for in terms of, what kind of cover do they want to be around or what's their bottom adjacents, to where I can roll through the area and look up and go, okay, over here we've got a pond that's got lots of good hard edges and it's got a couple little clumps and it's got some places where the pad veins run out into the hydrilla out to the edge and use my eyes to kind of find more productive areas and then use my screen to make sure I make the most efficient and precise cast that I can to make sure every opportunity that I get isn't botched because I decided to throw over a clump of pads to fish that was on the other side and I get him wrapped up. Or I make a cast in the hydrilla and I get hung in the hydrilla and now I have to snap it out and I spook him in the process. I'm just using it to make sure that I maximize every opportunity, not necessarily creating new ones.
True. I just seen that guy. The next question here is favorite Neko cadence from both guys.
Marshall, you can start up.
Neko cadence.
Yep.
We talking about like how we work it?
That's what I would guess. It's the speed, how you work it.
Yeah, I got you. I would say when it comes to an Neko rig, I like to. Most of the time, I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to make that fish follow it to the bottom. And then once he gets to the bottom, I'm going to do I'm not going to shake it fast. And I'm also not going to drag it. I'm going to do like slow hops, almost like you're trying to bounce that bait across the bottom, but softly. And that you're wanting that, while you're, the nose of your worm, while it's down on the bottom, you're wanting that tail to kind of, like twitch like that. And keeping the nose of that bait close to the bottom while you do it. But I'd say slow twitches and bounces.
Drew?
For me, Neko cadence is just going to depend on whether the fish that I'm fishing for are primarily feeding up or feeding down. If you're using scope, easy to assess pretty fast. You can make that cast. If that fish is really focused on it when it goes up, but you let it fall to the bottom and he loses interest, it's probably an up feeder. If you throw it out there and he peaks up on it when it's up, but loses interest as soon as he gets back to the bottom, he locks in on it, that's a downfish. If you're not using it, what you're going to do is you're going to make that cast, you're going to snap it up and focus on your initial fall and your first lift. If you're getting bites on that, you're going to focus up. If you make that cast and that bait sits out there and you drag it halfway back to the boat, you're going to focus on that being downfish. So for upfish, I'm going to focus on being a little bit snappier and a little bit more speed oriented, meaning those fish that are feeding up, a lot of times they're more willing to cover distance than ones that are feeding on the bottom. So I'm going to use a retrieve that's more, a lot of times I'll be a little bit more in the reel. So the beautiful thing about the Neko rig is if you rig it right, hook it right, that bait's going to vibrate really hard when you pull it. So when you pull it, it's going to go. And the beauty of that bait is when you pull that line tight after, you snap it up or you make it vibrate real hard, that bait's going to hang there for a second. Not that it's going to suspend perfectly, but it's going to hang there for a second. And that's their opportunity to come up and eat it. So for upfish, I'm a big, I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to do a couple hard handle turns, and then I'm just going to hang that line. A couple hard handle turns, hang that line. And then for fish on the bottom, one of my big things is I just want to be really methodical with fish on the bottom, meaning if they're going to lock in on it, if I can see them, they're going to lock in on it, stay on it. I'm not going to pull that bait over distance much. I'm just going to bump that slack and keep them engaged with it. My best opportunity is going to be the first time they get on it. So I'm just going to bump that slack, stay on it. And if I need to, I'll make it do a big move and then reassert that initial fall. I'm trying to make them have to come up and back down at it. So with downfish, I want to give them as many first opportunities, if that makes sense, as I can, meaning that initial fall, hang that thing in place, and then a couple real hard handle turns, get that thing going up where you build enough lift that they have to follow it down again rather than following it across the bottom. And I'm going to do that, and reinitiate it. But it's all about, whether they're feeding up, it's about reinitiating that really aggressive up opportunity a lot. If they're feeding down, it's about reinitiating that very aggressive initial down opportunity a lot. But that's how I fish it.
Very good tip. And I will say when I fish with you down there, I would have never, without watching you and watching your scope, ever burned that thing as far as you were and make them chase it. I was dumbfounded that day, and I definitely picked up something. I was like, wow. I've never done that, and I'm an old guy. So learn something new every day. What were your two favorite colors down there and why? Pat Bowden.
So, by the way, thank you for the question, Pat. Looking forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks. But for me, my two colors that I rotated through primarily were plum and GP. Plum and green pumpkin, 2 standards, 2 Florida classics, and those were the 2 colors in the big baits Neko-rama that I threw.
Yeah, and so he was doing that. I was throwing the Robo Worm, and the main color for me this week was the Margarita Mutilator. It might have actually been Margarita Mutilator 2. But that purple color in that Florida water, it almost glows. So, most of the water is dark and tannic. Even if it's, no matter if it's clear or a little dingy, it's still got that dark tannic look to it. And that purple glowed really good. And I think, it might not, but I think sometimes it helps them find it. If you get it near them, they can catch a glimpse of that purple. So I threw that color, and I did throw just the regular morning dawn too some, but I did most of my damage on the Margarita.
Very nice. Devin Greenwood, what's your guys' favorite technique that's not forward-facing sonar?
I know what mine is. Mine is for sure going to be a ChatterBait, and it's mainly because you can catch big bass on it on average. And then 2, you can fly down the bank with it. You can cover some serious water with it. And then also, I don't think I've ever in my life, in every single lake or river, pond, whatever, no matter where I go, I can always catch fish on a ChatterBait. So that'd probably be one of my favorite. And then obviously, like a lot of other people, a topwater, whether it be a walking bait or a buzz bait, something like that you can't hardly beat a topwater bite.
It's funny you say that, Marshall, because this is my desk, but I got a bee height goodie bag in here.
Mm-hmm. Look at there. Yeah. There's the ChatterBait.
Just showed up from my boy, and it's right here on my desk. Haven't even put it in the boat yet.
So for me personally, and this is just my standard caveat, forward-facing sonar, it's just my eyes underwater. It's my ability to scuba dive with the fish while I'm fishing. So it's not a technique-oriented thing. I fish, I've caught them on a frog in a local tournament this year on using my scope. I mean, it's not something that's necessarily technique-oriented, but I will say this, when it's my favorite way to fish a certain bait when it comes to just using my eyes above water, not using my ability to see underwater, is Man, I love in the springtime. My number one favorite bite is throwing a bait like our Buka trick shad or a line through swim bait around dock floats. Very specific scenario, but throwing a big bait, especially one in like an albino color or really bold white in some off-colored water, nice windy day in the spring. I mean, there are very few ways that are as effective at catching giant ones, and a good number of them, as going out to your local lake when it's blowing in the springtime and it's a nice warm day, and throwing a big white bait down the bank. I mean, at big profiles like that, they're super engaging, and you have so much power over making the fish bite. That's one thing I love about a glide bait style of bait or a big line through, and you can really work with them a lot. And so I love throwing a bait like that and just like throwing it across the laydown, chopping it around, making it shoot across the limbs, and like almost as if you're like walking, walking top water in, one direction or out the other direction. Same thing with a glide. I love chopping it around things and making it work and trace cover. And those few times every, 40, 50 casts where you go and you chop it one time hard and it shoots and it just gets T-boned. That, for me, that
you
does it every time.
Most of the time you can see it because you're not fishing it really deep.
I love visual big bait bites on the bank. That never gets old for me.
Dude, when we got those prototypes into the trick shad and we had to go out and test and do all that stuff, just wore them out. I mean, it was just – and it's so much fun, like you said, because you're chopping it and you just see that mouth and you just and they just hammer it,
And if the water clarity's right, you never see the fish until he goes to eat it.
Yes, exactly.
And so you just chop, chop, chop like you normally are, and then there's just mouth over glide bait.
I'm with you on that one. There's not much better. Marshall, do you use a trailer on your chatterbait?
Oh yeah, that's funny they said that because I actually had a guy fish with me one time that caught him without a trailer, and I thought that was interesting because, that thing, if you ever paid attention to it without a trailer, it'll hunt real bad, and so it's coming through the water doing like this right here, like all over the place, and it's an erratic, way of working a bait, but I've always threw a trailer every time, but I will be versatile with it. I will switch it up. So, say if I'm fishing around bass that are eating crawfish, or if they're eating crabs. I mean, Drew, he doesn't agree that a chatterbait imitates a crab. But if it's a tidal body of water and they're eating crabs, or if they're eating crawfish, I like throwing a crawl style trailer. But if they're feeding on shad and it's warm, I'll throw a swim bait. And if they're feeding on shad and it's cold, I'll throw something like a Zeko, like a tight wobble. But I'm never gonna throw that bait without a trailer, me personally.
One of the things that Fred Urbanus was showing me, his little tip, was he takes a flapping hog and he turns it vertical and he puts it. He rips off a couple of the appendages, but that's his favorite chatterbait. Just outside of the box, not something you really see too much, but he's like, dude, that's straight money.
Yeah.
Let's see. I need some Chowan info, Drew.
Okay, Liz. So this is a tournament obviously near and dear to my heart. Reason I got this little thing peeking over my shoulder, and that was an awesome fishery. First time I'd ever been there, as it was for a lot of us. It was a super cool place. So with the Chowan River, it sets up tidal-esque, meaning you have a lot of those same coastal, variables that you have in any tidal fishery. You got a lot of cypress trees. You got some different types of generally emergent vegetation, bank grass and things of that nature. And you have a lot of docks and very shallow sand flats that go out for miles. But the big difference at the Chowan is, especially when we were there in the summertime, we had a lot of cleaner water compared to what I would expect on a fishery of that nature. And the Chowan is a very unique place in that it's got a massive population of 3 to 8 pounders. It's truly incredible. And so many of those big isolated targets, you talk about a big cypress tree that's well away from the rest of the line of cypress trees. You talk about a big point that's got some old duck blind posts on it or something like that. One of those big stumps that are just out there from all the cypress tree wreckage from some hurricane years ago. All those big isolated targets are the best ways, in my opinion, when they're not up in the woods, one of the best ways to catch a big one consistently there. I mean, we saw it, time after time across the week. By the end of the tournament, almost the entire top 10 was fishing big isolated targets, whether that be exposed cypress trees, duck blinds, or big stumps. That was the go-to for sure. But in the section of the Chowan River, we had the Chowan and the Roanoke to work with. Couldn't fish the rest of the sound. But in the Chowan, you got a couple big major creeks that snake way off. I'm assuming in the springtime they probably get pretty good with a large population of big fish run in those areas without having a lot of backwater creeks that run a long ways. I would assume the couple that do exist are really, really good under the right scenarios. And the Chowan, it's all about, in my opinion, it's all about those channel swings where you can get, a really hard swing in the river. River fish love that. Even when there's not current, they're still going to orient on places that set up right for that heavy current when it happens. And so those big channel swings in the river, big channel bends are always going to be really high percentage places. But man, it's an awesome fishery. Bait wise, I would go armed with a topwater, probably a jerkbait of some sort, and a couple different worms. I threw a big Texas rig worm and I threw a drop shot. Those are two that are really hard to beat when you're fishing for largemouth and off-colored water, especially around pieces of cover. And that was what I rocked with that week when we were there. And that place is special fishery, man. I hope you go and crush them when you're there because that place can be really, really fun. And it can definitely, leave an impact on you in your fishing career. So I hope you go whenever you're going there, Les, and I hope you smoke them.
Was that the one that was like, I remember Ricky telling me, was that the one that was like snakes were everywhere?
Yes, that was the snake tournament.
Yeah. I mean, I remember everybody I talked to said there were just snakes everywhere. Like, okay. Yeah, I'm out. I'm good. What are you, we're getting close. There's Ricky.
Yeah, they're not good snakes either. They're not good snakes.
There's no such thing as a good snake.
No. Hey, I got a couple quick questions I want to throw at these guys. Is it Cinco or Senko?
I'd say Cinco.
Which one is that? It felt like a blend. Can you say it again?
How do you say it? Cinco or Senko?
Yeah, the first one. Cinco.
Just a second. I got to take myself out of the context of this question to know how I say it.
What? Come on now.
I think I say Senko.
All right.
Like with an A.
Yeah,
all right, JT, what's the right pronunciation? I know what it is.
Senko. Now,
right.
But if we go to, I know where you're going with this. We're going to go to the Senko and the Zako. And this, I know where you're going with that.
It's regional, right? I guess we'll just say it's regional.
Correct.
All right, Zako or Zako?
So I say Zako. I think I just said it a minute ago. But now that you say that, I think I remember Brett getting on to all of us and telling us it was Zako.
Yep.
So I'm just wrong. I'm just saying it wrong.
Zako stands for little fish in Japanese, and that's why it is. And
that's what it looks like.
But anybody in the South, Alabama, the Howells, everybody, all that kind of stuff, it's Zako.
All right. I got one last one.
I say Zako. So
Neko or Neko?
It's definitely Neko.
Neko. I didn't even say that one down.
Emphasize the E, Neko.
It's definitely Neko because I think that's a Japanese technique too. And I'm pretty sure they call it Neko.
Neko. All right. I think that's how Ayler,
it's Neko to me.
I think that's how Ayler says it. So I'm going with.
But Ayler says Yamamoto too.
No, that's how you're supposed to say it, right?
No.
That's how you say it.
All them West Coast guys, Yamamoto. Beehive, Cody Meyer, all those guys. They're all.
I'm glad this is all we got to argue about. It's fun, right? It's fun. Nobody's. Yeah.
I had one more though. More is 2025. What single event that's on your schedule are each one of you looking forward to the most? Which body of water?
I would say on which schedule? The Bass Pro Tour?
Yeah, Bass Pro Tour.
Definitely Lake Murray. It's like right down the road, and it's in March. Definitely.
That was going to be an electric tournament.
What about for you, Drew?
Biggest, I mean, the single tournament I'm looking forward to the most
He's gonna
is
taste
Red
that.
Crest at Guntersville. I mean, Red Crest is going to be a super cool tournament. You know, it's our championship. You know, it's our big mega money tournament with a decreased field, and it's on a fishery that I've been to in April and really enjoy fishing. And my first ever top 10 was at Guntersville in April, throwing a ChatterBait and a trap. So it's one that I feel, you know, prepared for both when I'm looking down and when I'm looking up. So it's one I'm excited to fish. But single venue, Smith Mountain Lake. I'm a big new lake guy. I've never been to Smith Mountain. There's only 2 on the schedule next year that I've never been to. And I've heard some really good things about it, so I'm really jacked about heavy hitters at Smith Mountain.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's not far from me at all, like 2 hours. But all right, JT, which one are you looking most forward to?
None of them, because it's all work for us, Ricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Conroe because that means it's starting. And as much as these two love to fish, I love to chase them around and bug them. So
I'm gonna say I will 100% say Red Crest on Guntersville. Why? Because my 2 oldest boys both live on Guntersville.
right, that's right.
So I will get to go stay at their house for free for once instead of the other way around. I'll get to eat their food, hang out at their place.
Go ahead and
Leave
thought
it
about that
completely messy and just pack up and head home.
and leave.
No, but it'll be good because I get to spend time with my boys, and you know,
Right.
I never thought at this point in life that, you know, my 2 oldest boys would be in the same career path as me and being in the fishing industry and loving it. And it's just, it'd be a good event. And again, it's Guntersville. It's the right time of year. A big fish. I mean,
it's going to be a blowout tournament.
Yeah, I've been on that lake several times now. Had at Ryder events there. Stayed at Boyd's house, which is, I hope I get to stay at Boyd's house and not my kid's house. Let's put it that way. Boyd's house, very nice. But no, I mean, it's just it's that time of year, man. It's a beautiful lake. It's a beautiful area too. I mean, the restaurants and the whole little landing thing they got there. I'm looking forward to that one probably the most too.
Yeah, it's you know, it's gonna be a good season. I'm excited to get it going. You know, these two, I don't know what to say about them other than they're great fishermen, but they're even better young men. I mean, they're fun to be around and always positive.
Absolutely.
Marshall, I think you cursed yourself though. I've just been thinking about that the whole podcast. So I'm going to make sure I hang on to this recording and definitely
hang on to it.
Be there for the Mitchell one when it comes.
Hey,
hey, JT, let's let them get off here. You and I can chat for just a minute or 2 more, and we'll shut this thing down. Drew, Marshall, thank you very much.
Thank you,
appreciate
it. Thanks, JT.
Right.
You guys have a great winter. Have a great thanks Thanksgiving. Tell your families.
Happy Thanksgiving, fellas.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
All right, JT, we haven't done one of these in a while, man. I think it was really good. You did an excellent job.
Hey, it's easy when you got guys like that. I mean, they're just like you said, they're 2 awesome young anglers coming up. I don't even like to call them kids anymore because they're men. You know, spent time with their families and got to know their parents and stuff like that. They're just great kids. They represent themselves well. They're not caught up in any drama, and they're both out there living the dream, man. They're having fun fishing.
Right. And they do a great job for the brands. They're, great brand ambassadors. I've seen both of them stop in the parking lot and talk to kids, give baits away to kids. Just, fun to be around. I think you said it earlier when you were talking about their last day in the Summit Cup, and they were having fun. And I think so many people have lost touch of this. I mean, it's a job, like what we do is a job. But at the end of the day, if you're having fun, it's not really a job.
Exactly. And we're both blessed to do what we do. We love our passion. We're in the outdoors industry. That's why I tell people I turned a hobby, back when I had a hunting TV show into a career, and then just kind of have grown it there. And it's fun to meet these guys and to see how it's developed. The fishing industry is at an all-time peak. I mean, it's booming. I mean, there's so many live streams. There's so many tournaments going on, and to not get caught up in drama. It's just like I tell people, it's still the outdoors. It's fishing. Let's go have fun, and that's what I'm saying. All of the anglers. I have not had one angler that I've talked to that said, you know what, those team formats weren't fun. They're like, let's do more. Let's do more. They're all like, this was so much fun. I mean, when Pete Height and Brent Ayler, when they were here during that at Stockton, they were like little kids when they called me after it was, all released, because we couldn't talk about it. I had no idea they were coming here.
Right.
It was secret. They were doing, and it's my lake, so of course I can't say anything.
And the fact they can relate to it, I mean, the viewers can relate to it because that's the way we all fish. I mean, I can't say that I've ever fished a tournament that was a solo tournament by myself in the boat with a camera guy. Yep. But everybody knows about the team tournaments, and I think Major League Fishing might be onto something there for sure.
Yep.
I know you got
keeping it fresh, fixing it up.
Go ahead.
They're just keeping it fresh. I love that they're trying some new things and let the anglers have fun. Like you said, they're not. A lot of anglers want to shut down. We get that. It's their off season. They want to hunt. They want to do all that kind of stuff. But some of those guys, I mean, fall fishing is the time to catch big ones, and people love it. I mean, the last 5 years, I've enjoyed more fall fishing than I ever have, whether it's even for crappie, walleye, or bass. It's just so much fun.
Well, we've got a bunch of stuff caught up here around the house, and that's I'm going to get some time on the water over the next couple of weeks before we have to head to Conroe. We're fortunate to be aligned with some great brands, great company in GSM. I want to thank them for all they do, and letting us have the best pros in the world to talk to as well.
GSM's. I mean, a lot of people. I want to cover that real quick, just because a lot of people they're always worried about private equity groups and things like that. But I am telling you, it's GSM's just a different breed. Like I said, they've bought a lot of brands, but they've really built that family atmosphere, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I enjoy them. Crispin was supposed to be live with us tonight, but you know what? They're in new product development meetings. They're coming up. They're forward thinking. They're thinking years down the road. They're developing baits, and how they can change the industry and how they can make something new. So I understood that. I was like, hey, dude, we've got this covered. Go do what you have to do, But Crispin would have loved to have been here because he loves talking to these guys.
Right. He gets giddy like they do about the team series over this stuff. So we're gonna, my thought is we're gonna start doing a bunch more of these. They're easy enough to do. The viewers seem to like them. We can get some more fan interaction. I'm looking at trying to get a call-in number set up, and we'll have some guys call in. Maybe work on some giveaways, and I really want to just continue doing these and make sure we stay on a pretty good schedule. To the fans, if you had any thoughts, ideas, what would make it better, I'm sure a lot less of me and JT and more of our guys, but it was fun, JT. Thank you. We'll get back on this thing. I'll talk to you tomorrow, and we'll come up with a plan.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy.
All right, buddy. Good night.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Thank you. You too, bud.